My understanding is that in between seasons of Severance, you went to the circus. You toured with a circus. Am I right about that? You went to a circus?
Yeah. Yeah. After season 1 and 2, I joined two different circuses and performed as in a role of a kind of a ringmaster of sorts.
What's the first thing you think of when you think about what appealed to you about Darkest Miriam when you heard about it?
I got this really wonderful letter from Naomi J, the filmmaker, uh, asking me to play the role of Miriam. And I immediately fell in love with her in the script. Miriam's perspective, her sense of humor. Um, and I then immediately read Martha Bailey's book that the film was adapted from called The Incident Report. And I loved the format of that book. It's made of 144 incident reports
Mm.
that this librarian writes. It's a real thing that librarians do. They have, when something peculiar or even kind of just out of the ordinary happens at the library, they fill out a report. Um, in just on a piece of paper, but they're called incident reports. And so this book is this librarian writing her daily incident report, but they become increasingly more personal and journalistic.
8:55 a.m. The light switches on the control panel are stiff. Note to call maintenance to fix the problem.
Here are the trees. Can you make little leaves for me?
Painting man is out front.
And so you get to understand what's going on in her personal life based on the characters that she's meeting inside of the library, and then the character who really kind of cracks her world open, this taxi driver named Yanko, who she has the courage to meet, to introduce herself to in the film after she falls into a construction hole in front of her house.
However, that construction hole, or like lying down in the hole and staring up at the sky, is also some of the most, I guess, powerful moments of the film, because you see your character Miriam. She's lost her father, and she's. I mean, I think we can all relate to this. Those of us who have experienced loss are sort of just unmoored by it. Not that you're sad all the time. Not that you're, walking around like Charlie Brown with "Christmas Time Is Here" playing in the background and just staring at the ground, but you're sort of lost and unmoored by the person that you're missing. Where did you go mentally, or in terms of your preparation, to access your characters dealing with grief?
In the year prior to filming this movie, I lost a friend suddenly and was moving through a grief of my own. And having that kind of experience where you feel their essence or their presence in different parts of your life, and sort of unexpectedly, grief is kind of, at least for me, was this surprising cyclical experience where I would move through something and then be in a different space that reminded me of that person, and be struck by it in a different way. And there's something about that construction hole that Miriam falls into that feels like physical and metaphorical. Obviously, it's this like interior space, but it's also like this embodiment where she can kind of go and be with herself in this space that's kind of out of space and time. She's really haunted by the essence of her father inside of the library. He was a character who loved books himself, and so she's kind of surrounded herself by the world of her father by working at this library. But that, yeah, falling in that hole really cracks her open, and all of a sudden the world is flooding in, and it becomes kind of technicolor. Uh, and with all of the beauty of being open to the world, also she's open to the pain, and to really finally moving through the grief, hopefully in in a kind of present and possibly healthy way.
I appreciate you sharing that. I want to talk to you a little bit about your film Circus Person, which I saw a few hours ago.
I'd love to talk about it.
I did a fair amount of research to getting ready for this and reading about you. And I really enjoyed reading about when you were a kid and going to the circus when you were a kid. And your mom was a great was a great face painter, which is a wild thing to have for a mother that I really, she was a face painter.
Yeah, she is still.
She still paints faces?
Yes. And she and I started this face painting business together when I was a teenager. And so it was a wonderful way to learn about art as a business, and also to get to meet all of these other kind of mobile artists at different festivals and Renaissance fairs and birthday parties. You know, we would do birthday parties as well, but I kind of got to know this circus adjacent world. And along the way, I actually found out that Bloomington Normal, which is close to where I grew up, was Bloomington Normal, Illinois, was the trapeze capital of the world for like 75 years.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, it just was a place where trapeze artists used to go and train when they were off season. And there's speaking of libraries, there's like the third largest circus archive library at Illinois State University in Bloomington. And I got to know the librarian there. This has nothing to do with Darkest Miriam, but all of a sudden it's dovetailing. And I got to know, the librarians there, and it kind of exploded this fascination with the circus.
In Circus Person, you star as this character who's dealing with heartbreak and spends time with circus performers and kind of goes to the circus, and she is a circus person. Can you tell me something about the circus that's most compelling to you, that people like me who have a casual relationship with the circus and that we may have gone to it once, that's most compelling to you that we may have missed?
Whenever I spend time with circus performers, and I've traveled around the country and spent a fair amount of time with a variety of circuses, small tent circuses, I like to ask them what circus means to them. And I've been collecting definitions of the circus, and some of my favorites are that circus means that everybody's welcome. Circus is risk. Circus is right now. Circus is family. Circus is a circle. And yeah, I keep collecting these definitions because I think it means something different to everyone, but for circus performers in particular, the word I hear most often is that circus means family.
My understanding is that in between seasons of Severance, you went to the circus. You toured with a circus. Am I right about that? You went to a circus?
Yeah. After season 1 and 2, I joined 2 different circuses and performed as in a role of a kind of a ringmaster of sorts. And it was again a full circle moment for me, because it was 2 weeks after I filmed Circus Person, August of 2019, after feeling the kind of empowerment and like just total satiation of directing something for the first time, that I got the call from my agents to make a self-tape for a character named Helly R. And it was really the spirit of making that film that I had with me when I made that self-tape. And so I sometimes like to think that Helly R was born at the circus.
Oh, now coming through.
Pardon me.
Yep.
My bad.
I fit in. Like a square peg in a round.
And now in subsequent seasons after filming season 1 and 2, Britt, have actually gotten to run away with the circus. The second circus I performed in was called Shoestring Circus, and it was in Bellingham, Washington, which, again, full circle, was the town that Dan Erickson, the creator of Severance, went to college in. And he actually came and saw my opening night performance in the circus, and it was really special to get to see him in the audience and to be performing. Sorry, again, full circle, under the tent that was actually in my short film 5 years prior.
In Circus Person, it's a quiet film. A lot of the dialogue is done in voiceover. Severance is also a quiet show, and Darkest Miriam is also a quiet film. And I was thinking that, given that circus to me, I mean, if you're a ringmaster, you have to speak a fair bit, but circus to me is, when I watch great circus performers, there's so much storytelling with the body. I was wondering whether any of your experience, if I'm onto something, that your experience in the circus, learning how to do embodied performance, would help you when you go back to be an actor.
Mm.
No.
No, totally. I mean, definitely. There's just a different, like when you're on stage performing live, the proscenium, the audience is further away from you, and the camera captures like a thought, or an interior space. I guess the goal in circus is to sort of, especially in a sort of ringmaster clown type of a role, is to share your experience with the audience, and that requires a bit more embodiment and projection. But they're different muscles, and I really enjoyed going from being in the world of Severance and the just switching directions and being able to deliver something to the audience right away. Like the moment I'm speaking, the audience is receiving what I'm doing. Whereas Severance, we obviously have a bit of a delay from the time what we're doing reaches our audience.
However, still a very physical role of Heli. And in particular, I don't know if you're a very online person. I try my best not to be. But there is a lot going on with the way you walk in Severance. And there are these TikToks made of like Heli walks the runway, where they're doing a version of you walking the runway, or a version of you
Really?
walking the dog. Have you seen any of this like discussion of the way your character walks in Severance?
No, I'm more trying to be offline as much as possible, but I have heard there's talk of my walk. Helly moves through the world in a really particular way, and from the get-go in season 1, she's on this really physical mission to get out of this office at all costs. And so she didn't dress herself in the morning. She shows up wearing these heels and this skirt, and she kind of has no other choice. So she just moves like as if she were wearing a basketball uniform.
The departments are pretty spaced out, but it'll all fill in one day. They're planning an expansion.
And I'm what, part of that?
No, you're a replacement.
Replacement for who? Why are you saying that like you hate it?
How has the Severance thing been for you? The explosion of it. It feels like now in this new season, more people are talking about it than ever.
It's incredible that the fans are creating such rich worlds outside of the world that we built. Even it's almost like this show about consciousness, and it's expanding in the consciousnesses of our audience. And so it's a great joy to hear about all these theories. And I'm on Instagram, so I see the artwork that comes out of, like, people are making drawings and paintings and songs about the show. I can't think of a better like compliment as an artist than someone being creative because of something you made.
I spoke to Tramell Tillman and Zach Cherry from Severance not that long ago. One thing that struck me was how little they knew about the show in their audition. They had these very bare bones descriptions. Tramell talked about was 20s to 40s black company man. How much were you told about your innie and outie when Severance first came your way?
I read the pilot, and I think the description of Heli was that she was defiant, rebellious by nature, and I didn't know about her outies identity until I got the role and started receiving, the rest of the scripts for season 1. But Helly is so defined by her actions in that pilot. She just wakes up and has this immediate moral compass that like something is off. She's like, I got to get out of this place. There's something wrong with this.
I'm not taking your survey.
Shall we begin with question 1?
Let me out of here. Hey! Open the door! Hey! Let me out!
And so I worked a lot like subconsciously to develop like how she is. I listened to a lot of Patti Smith. I watched videos of animals trying to escape. I watched a lot of videos of people who are like on trial for something and then try to escape the
Interrogation room or...
Yeah, exactly.
To start, imagine yourself as a seesaw. Ow! Fuck!
And then I also just did lots of like scribbles and drawings of how Helly like is. So it's a lot of like really intense smashed crayons and things like that.
My wife is going to be so happy you just said that, because she's from a part of Newfoundland where they say crayons and I say crayons, and she's
What did I say?
crayons, and she's your biggest fan, and I feel like I've just lost that argument in my house. That no,
Crayon.
because she says, we're going to have to buy some crayons, and I go, it's crayons, honey.
Do you say often or often?
I suppose I do that often. I don't know now. But I'm
Oh,
from
no,
Newfoundland, so I have a
could've
weird
asked you out.
thing now,
When I was filming Darkest Miriam, I did work with a dialect coach to make sure I was saying words in the Canadian way.
Really?
But now I can't remember any of them, but they're in the film. I did say Toronto.
Yeah, people
Toronto.
from Toronto say Toronto for sure.
Toronto.
I had
Did
to learn
say
that because I say Toronto because I'm not from here.
Toronto.
Oh, Britt, you're good. You got it. We can get you citizenship if you want it.
Beautiful.
Let me close off like this. So much of Severance is about the way we divide our lives and personas between work and home, and so much of Darkest Miriam is actually about the life that you have outside your work in the library and the life that you have in the world. What is it about that divide between who we are in different spaces that you think is making us so interested and engaged right now?
That's a nice parallel you drew. I think that's a really human thing that we do. We behave differently in different spaces in our lives, whether it's work or home or with different groups of people. You kind of become a different role. Like if you're on a team and there's already someone who's like the rebellious one, maybe you become a little bit more of the rule follower, or you're at home for the holidays and there's someone who's a rule follower. Maybe you kind of want to break the rules a little bit more. So I think that not only the environment but the other people in our group inform how we show up in the world, and we do split ourselves into parts, especially when it's work versus home.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.